But first we've got Dr. Joel Hartman, who's the Vice Provost for Information Technologies and Resources at UCF. As the university CIO, he has overall responsibility for library, computing, networking, telecommunications, media services, and e-learning activities. He previously served as treasurer in the 2003 chair of the EDUCAUSE Board of Directors and the EDUCAUSE Learning Initiative Advisory Committee and secretary on the Seminars of Academic Computing Coordinating Board. He now serves on the Microsoft Higher Education Advisory Group as co-chair, the Oracle Education and Research Industry Strategy Council, the Sloan Consortium Board of Directors, the Blackboard Client Strategy Council, the EDUCAUSE Recognition Committee as a past chair, and the Change Magazine Board of Editors, and the Lake Nona Medical City IT Council, and is the chairman of the Board of Directors of the Florida Lambda Rail, Florida's Research and Education Network. He was the recipient of the 2008 EDUCAUSE Leadership Award. Dr. Hart, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Governor Duncan. Governor, Chancellor Brogan, distinguished guests, I'm honored to be here this afternoon to give you an example of the work going on within just one of the SUS institutions. And I do need to say that all of the institutions, as you saw earlier, are engaged to a greater or lesser extent in online or e-learning. As one of our faculty members said a while back, if you want to see distance learning, look in the last row of my lecture hall. I'm not going to be talking about that kind of distance learning today, but rather the online, web-based kind. So it's understandable that there would be some questions and misconceptions about this new activity. I mean, after all, we've been teaching in classrooms for centuries. We've only been doing online learning for decades. And we don't even have our terminology and definitions straight yet. So what makes us think that this particular venture into technology is going to be any different in terms of its impact on our institutions than our previous ventures with technology? The overhead projector, the slide projector, and the TV set, and so on. I would submit to you that we have probably come across a combination of technology and approach that gives us the rich tools that we need to achieve the objective of improving quality, increasing effectiveness, and in fact, I would argue, and you'll see in a little bit, perhaps even being a transformative force within the academy. We all use the web to learn. We look up a term on Google, a stock quotation, keep up with the news from Japan or Libya. We're learning online. Our students have never known a world without the internet, the web, or the computer. They think everything should be online, including their coursework. And in fact, that's what we've developed in the instructional environment. And I'll talk a little bit about how it works from an instructional point of view. In fact, I'll make the case today that online teaching is teaching, online learning is learning. And even though the tools, the techniques, the times, the locations may differ from the traditional synchronous classroom, we really have the opportunity to create, in fact, to recreate educational experiences for our students that can be as high, or I dare say even higher in quality than that which they might have been used to before. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the quality factor today and perhaps hint at a couple of thoughts as to how online learning might be approached from both a governance and a public policy perspective. As Bruce knows, and I know, serving with the Sloan Consortium, there are many measures of quality. This one has been agreed upon by a number of leading institutions who have a long history in the online environment. If you can accomplish these things, you can regard your online program as successful. Basically, they learn, they can have access, they're happy, and you can do it at scale economically within the institution's parameters. This may be one that hits a little more close to home from a governance perspective, which is the traditional iron triangle of access, quality, and cost. And what's accepted about the iron triangle is that you can increase maybe one of these, but not more than one without a decrease in the others. That is to say, you cannot increase all three at the same time, even though we wish we could. I'll come back to this point a little later in the presentation. At UCF, we began online learning in 1995 as, guess what, a distance learning environment. And we discovered in that first group of online courses that 75% of the students were living on campus. on campus. And so when we asked them why that was the case, it was a combination of curiosity, they love the technology, and it was convenient. It was convenient for them to work that course into their schedule. And since '95, we've gone on to develop 25 complete online degree programs, 25 online graduate certificates, and more than 1,200 blended or hybrid courses that exist as individual courses, not as degree programs. And as I'll show you in a little bit, the impact from a credit hour perspective of where this has gone has been nothing short of astounding. Our online courses consist of 4 course models. The first is fully online, delivered through the web. Blended, consisting of both classroom and web, and in typically 1 classroom meeting a week, the rest of the course online. And then more recently, we have added a video modality, one that's fully online and one that is also blended. The web environments include video components. The video classes include web components, and in fact, over time, these environments are moving closer and closer together. Looking at it as a continuum from fully face-to-face classes to fully online, fully face-to-face being classroom only, fully online being web only, the blended or hybrid learning is that space in the middle. However, what we see is actually these are not discrete categories. Over the years, what has happened is that faculty have taken the tools, the techniques, the excitement from their online classes and faculty development back into their face-to-face classes. Last fall, courses that were in our online course management system, the majority of them were face-to-face courses, which means that faculty are using these tools and techniques now in their classroom-based courses as well as their fully online courses. And in fact, to do strict comparisons of face-to-face versus online learning, there are virtually no more pure face-to-face courses to compare. Our organizational model at the university was developed around the integration of technology through a variety of campus activities. It includes libraries, all the traditional computer networking technologies, media services, and online learning. Essentially all the services necessary to prepare, support, deliver, and assess online learning under an organization reporting to the academic side of the institution. We take and have taken a systemic approach to how we do online learning. It's embedded within the academic culture of the institution. It's part of what we do. It begins with policy, direction, and strategy. It makes a heavy investment in faculty development to prepare faculty for quality courses delivered in a quality way online. We have instructional designers who work on that with them and also help them design their online courses, which are not simply translations of face-to-face courses, but rather entirely rebuilt courses to take advantage of the unique tools and opportunities in the online environment. The faculty can get involved in course production, but we have resources to help them with that, including technical support and infrastructure, and a significant investment in assessment to determine the impact on students and faculty and the institution itself. And as shown in this chart, it's a cyclical process in that we take what we've learned and go forward to try to make it work better year by year. We have 4 categories of faculty development, and I will say that faculty development is required in our environment. A faculty member must be certified and trained before he or she can teach an online course in any modality. We have refreshers for them to come back and gain new information. Faculty development is designed and delivered by instructional designers and by faculty. And if you'll notice the program on the right, we ask faculty before they teach and develop a fully online course to invest 8 weeks and 80 hours of their time to learn about how it is done, everything from pedagogy to copyright. And so what we're trying to build into this is, in fact, a variety of new pedagogical approaches, new ways of teaching, new tools to teach, new ways of thinking about teaching and learning. And for many faculty, their online faculty development may be their first deep experience in faculty development ever. And for many faculty, it has been transformative, as you can see by the number of faculty a moment ago who've taken their online skills and abilities back into their face-to-face classrooms and enhanced them with these same tools and techniques. So what we're moving from is a teaching-oriented experience to an interactive, dynamic, student-centered learning environment for students, a learning environment for students. In fact, if you think about the tools and techniques we've used in the past, all former technologies are primarily teaching technologies. The web can be a learning technology as well, which is why it can be so effective. And so we think of these tools, the online environment, as being advantageous because it's pedagogically rich, translated. There are lots of things you can do, lots of ways to do them, lots of tools to use, and they happen to be the tools the students use in their personal lives. They live online. They know this environment. In fact, if institutions or faculty are not doing online teaching and learning, sometimes our students question whether they've made it into the 21st century or not. So having assessed the collective of our experience over the years, I'm going to offer you what I call 10 steps to quality, otherwise known as my 10 suggestions, not to be confused with 10 commandments here. Okay. And they are these. An institution has to have some idea, in fact, a pretty good idea, why it's engaging in online learning. Because if you don't, it's the old proverb, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. There needs to be an institutional direction to this that informs the process, gives it shape, gives it form, gives it direction, and allows people to know what the institution is attempting to achieve. Access and quality are two good ones. Another is to take a systemic approach, and in our case, we work out an individual strategy with each of our academic colleges, but we provide centralized support and governance for that process, reporting to the provost's office in terms of giving it the level of quality and oversight and accountability and assessment that it requires. Faculty development is essential. Simply turning on the computer, putting up a web page, and telling faculty, there you go, will result in an outcome, but it's not necessarily the most desirable outcome. Faculty need to be helped to understand how to teach and how students learn, how to deal with issues, and how to prepare quality, and how to recognize quality and quality materials in this environment. They also need help to produce and design their courses, at the very least because it takes time, and we don't want to take faculty time away from the research, away from their teaching, away from their students. And so most institutions who are doing this at a deep level provide production support for these courses, and it assures quality, it assures standards, and it assures the faculty are not overly burdened by this. Likewise, provide support for the online students. So a help desk, sure, and other kinds of support, because online learning occurs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means that students can be at the peak of their learning experience at 3 o'clock in the morning. And when we come in the morning, we don't want to discover that they had a problem last night that we couldn't resolve that impacted their learning. Online courses is just a part of it. They also need access to other online services, such as administrative services, academic services, and library services. And in my view, the four legs of the stool are online courses, online business services, online library, and online student support from various areas of the institution. And the more of those you have, the better support you can provide to your online students, and the more effective they will be. As online learning grows, it impacts infrastructure. It puts demands on your servers, on your network, on your staff, and it grows at a rate that is faster than typical institutional growth, which is measured in the single-digit percentages, whereas online learning typically grows in double-digit percentages. And there's very little at our institutions, particularly money, that grows at that rate unless it's going the opposite direction we want it to. And so the ability to maintain this infrastructure, to make it reliable and have it work 7/24 is a key part of this, because when students and faculty come into a classroom, they expect teaching and learning to occur. When the student logs into their online course, they expect the same, and we have to be able to deliver it. The skills, the resources it takes to do this at scale and quality are sometimes fragmented throughout an institution or perhaps not present at all. And so building an organization model capable of supporting this is one of the challenges that many institutions face. And I believe that most of the institutions in the SUS who have been doing this for a while have this pretty well worked out, but it is an institutional challenge. Likewise, policy development. Many of the online initiatives that have failed throughout the country in the past forgot about the policy piece and faculty got concerned about various things before the policies were put in place to protect their rights, intellectual property, and so on and so forth. And so proactive policy development is a piece of this that works within the collective governance of the institution overall. And then finally, collect data. In fact, collect as much data as you can. Bruce made the comment that perhaps we have too much data about online learning. I would say that there's no such thing as too much data, because if you don't collect it, you can't analyze it. And people ask questions all the time, and the more data you have, the more answers you can give them. And lacking data, as we all know, anecdote always wins. At UCF, our assessment effort is based around 3 dimensions: students, faculty, and the institution. For students, we look at success, retention, learning styles, and we measure by generations, by genders, and by ethnicities. For both students and faculty, we measure demographics, satisfaction, strategies for success. We look at information fluency. And then on the right, we make our faculty the following offer. If you're interested in doing research around your innovative teaching, our assessment unit will work with you to refine the research question. We'll get or develop the instrument. We'll help you collect the data. We'll help you analyze the data. We'll give it to you in presentation quality format. It's your intellectual property. We'll help you find a journal. We have an editor who will help you prepare an article. If you want to present it, we might have a little travel money. If you go to Hawaii, we'll go with you. The question was asked earlier about success. We have tracked success since 1995, and it looks like this for 13 years. The blue bar is face-to-face classroom teaching. The pink bar in the middle is blended learning or hybrid, and the yellow bar on the right is online. They differ very slightly. They differ by term. And when we say success, we mean a student outcome of a grade of A, B, or C. Any other outcome is not success. Why A, B, or C? Why not talk about grades? The answer is that grading across institutions is highly idiosyncratic by faculty, by department, and by program. And when you drill down to grades, you have all these different factors that you cannot correlate. Success as A, B, or C works across the institution as a standard to measure it all. And I would say that even though it looks like blended learning may be a little higher, which it has been traditionally, sometimes referred to as the best of both worlds, the 3 modalities in terms of student success are equivalent in outcome. You may have read students in online courses withdraw at very high rates. That may be true some places, but it isn't necessarily a fact. In fact, withdrawal rates by these 3 modalities, face-to-face, blended, and online, are very equivalent. And when we talk to the students who've withdrawn from fully online courses and asked why, what we find is it wasn't because it was an online course, it was because life got in the way, and they withdrew for personal reasons by and large. Likewise, both students and faculty are highly satisfied in this environment. Now, this is self-reported satisfaction, but it's also measured by repeat course taking and repeat course teaching. Students who take online courses tend to take more. Faculty who, once they teach them, tend to teach more, and that's part of the reason that the trend is upward in online learning. Now, at the end of a course, we assess quality by giving our students the student perception of instruction form that you all do at your institutions. We've done the study twice, once with 1.2 million of these forms, and a second time represented here by over 600,000 of these forms over several years. That's not a sample. That's the entire population of forms over a time period. Courses that students rate excellent by mode of delivery has blended, followed by fully online, followed by face-to-face, followed by video-based modalities. Okay? And so this study was done initially to address a faculty senate anecdote saying, gosh, if we teach online, we'll get lower evaluations. Not true. The data have consistently shown it is not true. Students like the online environment, and when well prepared, faculty and courses are rated excellent slightly more often on average than face-to-face courses. Another measure of quality is convenience. And when you ask students about their perceptions, this is not satisfaction, this is simply their judgments about online learning, these 4 factors have shown up consistently over 13 years. They like the convenience. which is another way of saying the logistical demands are reduced. They like the flexibility. They feel more in control of their learning. And taken as a whole, these factors could be considered a reduced opportunity cost for getting a higher education degree. Looking at it from a university perspective, you could also think of these as a reduced opportunity cost for delivering a degree to students as well. Now to impact. You heard a little bit ago that the majority of growth within the SUS comes from online. Here is simply one example of the trend of student credit hours since the year we began online learning in 1995 to the present. The growth rate has been constant. In fact, it's a mysteriously flat, straight line growth rate, with the red and green layers being the online components, the blue being traditional classroom instruction. What we see now, over the last 5 years and for the foreseeable future, is that our own institutional trajectory is increasingly online growth. We have moved from a capacity-driven delivery model to a demand-driven delivery model, and we need to consider carefully the dimensions of what that means in terms of how we look at the future in our own institution. We also sometimes tend to think of our institutions as single places, and this is an example of our multiple delivery systems within the University of Central Florida. The large yellow circle is the main campus in Orlando. The smaller green circle is our hospitality campus, which is the Rosen campus near the hospitality area. The red circle is the collection of our 11 regional campus sites throughout Central Florida. And the blue circle is our online students. And what you see here is that our students choose not just mode of delivery, they choose the location of choice dynamically on a semester by semester and I dare say course by course basis. If you look at this Venn diagram over time, year by year, you will see the green and red circles remaining constant, the yellow circle slowly shrinking, and the blue circle rapidly growing. Intersection of those, increasing numbers of students making dynamic choices about mode and place of delivery. I've been asked to address the question of cost. And one question is, how does it compare with traditional classroom learning? When you deal with an integrated approach, classroom and video and web, it's really not so much of a comparison between them because the instructional costs are the same. You pay the faculty member the same to teach this course versus that course. Okay. And what about enrollment? Because there are no walls and seats, can you put 3 times as many students in an online class? I suppose theoretically you could, but if you want to have quality instruction, the teacher to faculty ratio is a governing factor, and the experience the students have, the amount of work and the quality of work the faculty member can do. And traditionally, the enrollments in our online courses are approximately the same as they are in face-to-face. At the lower undergraduate level, the online course average is slightly lower than face-to-face. At the upper division undergraduate, it's about the same, and at the graduate level, the online average is slightly higher than face-to-face, but by and large, it's the same, and it's the same for the same reasons. Is that faculty who teach and grade and provide materials and communicate with their students and support them have the same amount of work to do despite the mode of delivery. It's just how that work is spread out through the week. In a class, you may go to class, have office hours, and that's it. Online, you're exposed to student interaction 7 days a week, 24 hours, if that's what the students want from you. It also takes infrastructure, specialized personnel, and the development of all of this activity to begin to offer quality online courses, and that doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen for nothing. And so there's a front-end investment that has to be made before an institution can even do this, that has to be amortized over the volume of courses produced. However, having done it at the margin, at high volumes, it can become a very efficient way of delivering. For example, blended courses could theoretically give you a 67% increase in the use of your classrooms. Why? If you have one class live meeting a week, you can have Section A Monday, Section B Wednesday, Section C Friday, and 3 classes can share that classroom if scheduling is done efficiently. Plus, you can accommodate growth, and as we're learning, there are many people out there, when given the opportunity, will pursue a degree or come back to finish a degree who have been limited by circumstances, family, job, handicap, distance, whatever it may happen to be. And this opens the door for them which is part of the reason we're seeing the growth of this, and we're also seeing increases in the number of only online students at a time. And so in concluding, I would say the iron triangle may be a little bit elastic, because we have demonstrated the ability to, in fact, influence positively all three factors at the same time. Access by virtue of convenience and anytime, anyplace delivery. Quality by virtue of attention, investment, faculty development, and student support. And cost by virtue of efficiency of delivery when combined with traditional institutional resources, including classrooms and libraries and faculty, and the ability for students to have it both ways. Another measure of quality is external validation, and I won't go into these, but this program, Pam's program, and several others in the state have been recognized throughout the years with various qualitative awards indicating that these programs hold up well, not just locally or regionally, but on a national level. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Yes. Dr. Paulson.
I had two quick questions.
Yes,
The first one, I'll give you both of them, is are there certain subject areas that lend themselves to this better than others? And have you found that there are certain types of professors who are more willing to engage in this than in others? I mean, the clinical teaching track versus the research track would be my...
First question, types of courses. The answer is in general, yes. There are some courses that are easier to do online, some that are harder. Okay. For example, we mentioned earlier, laboratory science courses are difficult because the labs are difficult to put online, and sometimes not even possible. Courses that use a lot of symbolic notation, chemistry, mathematics, tend to be a little trickier because of the symbolism being difficult to do dynamically in a web-based environment. Sometimes those move to video because of that. Another example is, well, if you were about to have surgery, right, would you want the surgeon to have had a class to tie knots or learn the knots online? You'd probably prefer the class, right? So there are some things that tend to favor the classroom experience versus the online experience. And the distribution of activity throughout our institution is differential across colleges. But there's nothing saying that it all has to go online, or even all of a given program has to go online. You can put lectures online, you can put resource material online, and assist your students with online learning, even if the course is largely a classroom-based course. Or perhaps a blended course would be the way to go. So this is not a case of all or nothing absolutes. It's a case of an activity that allows you to bring different tools and techniques into the picture to achieve a given set of objectives. Your question about faculty. The more engaged faculty are in research, or put it another way, the less engaged they are in teaching, the more difficult it might be for them to spend the time to learn, to develop, and to deliver online courses. They do tend to be time-consuming. But I've seen this take hold in research-oriented institutions, senior research-oriented institutions. Another would be that not all faculty find this something they're interested in doing. And what we've found is that once we've begun doing it, and there are a number of faculty who have had the experience and can tell the story from the faculty perspective, it becomes much more credible as an activity. In fact, we've discovered that the majority of faculty who've done this are senior faculty who, guess what, sit on the tenure promotion committees, and when younger faculty come up having engaged in this activity, the senior faculty are better able to judge it and give them a fair hearing of their innovative teaching practices. We've also found a high correlation between faculty who've received our teaching awards and faculty who've engaged in this activity and made a commitment to high-quality instruction and had faculty development.
Okay. Any other questions right now? Okay. Yes.
I think that's the key. Is the professor, whether he's in a classroom or on a video screen or whatever, if he's willing to teach, then all children, students will learn. If he's just sitting in the classroom, his presentation or his style, or they happen to match the learning style with the teaching style, then you don't have the great results. So I think it's the professor that's delivering, not just the tools to provide.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
And that is why, in my opinion, and that's all it is, arguably the most important component of all of this is the staff development piece. You can provide great technology, you can provide room to run, even incentives, but at the end of the day, and UCF has done this. I know the chairwoman and I were down there, saw part of this presentation when we were down there, and were so impressed with it. But the piece that we talked about most once we left was how much time and energy and commitment is put on by the university, but by the faculty of the university into that staff development piece to be able to do the quality job with this, that it has to be done if it's going to work well.
You better believe it.
We've had more than 900 of our faculty go through one or more of these faculty development programs, and there's more demand for them than we have the resources to deliver, so it's taken hold.
Chair Farr? No. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we got one more presentation, and then
Thank you.
hopefully we can continue with some questions. Thank you very much. Before I introduce Dr. Pam Northrup, I also just wanted to recognize Dr. Margaret Sullivan. I think she's back there somewhere, but she is not presenting today, but she was a key member of our strategy team from USF. She oversees the USF St. Pete campus and has also worked in the not SUS model, and so she was kind of always challenging us a little as we were putting this together, that the world doesn't always just revolve around us, and to think about things from different perspectives. So just wanted to thank her for her contribution. Dr. Northrup is the Dean of the College of Professional Studies and the Associate Provost for Academic Innovation at the University of West Florida. She has spent the past 7 years leading distance learning at West Florida, including establishing the Academic Technology Center and the UWF online campus, which currently serves 30% of all UWF enrollments annually. She has written over $4 million in federal contracts and grants in the past 5 years, designed and developed innovative models in distance learning to include mobile learning programs for deployed service members, use of Navy knowledge online for instructional delivery, the use of distance learning for language instruction, and most recently, Dr. Northrup is working with the National Flight Academy at the National Museum of Naval Aviation to develop STEM-focused, highly immersive, game-based curriculum for middle and high school students in its partnership with several schools to promote STEM education and to establish clinical experiences for pre-service teachers, both virtual and face-to-face. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for allowing me to present what we've been doing at the University of West Florida. We have been engaged in distance learning for about 7 years, and so I'm going to take you through kind of in the case study fashion of what we're doing currently and how we got here. Of course, you've heard a bit about the national picture, and really what's happening every year, this is the Sloan C report that was referenced earlier. This work has been done for several years, and each year that data are collected from 2,000 plus institutions around the country, it's assumed that distance learning is going to plateau. Each year, that does not happen. And a year ago, 4.6 million students were taking at least one online course. This year, 5.6 million. So it's grown 1 million students nationally within the past year. And so we're not going to say it's going to plateau. We're going to continue to ride this along. Something that I think is important for all of us to contemplate as we think about distance learning and how each of our campuses deliver distance learning through our web management systems or whatever it is that we use, the world is open. Facebook is not just for your teenager anymore. 5 billion pieces of content are shared daily. Old people like me are on Facebook monitoring, watching, not just the silly things and who got a latte where, but more serious discussion is beginning to emerge on Facebook as well. People collaborate, people share. Everyone is a content creator at this point. You heard earlier about the Florida Orange Grove. There's also other repositories around the country and the world where people are sharing information, content, ideas, not just silly things, but very serious discussion is happening all over the world in this type of technology. So for us as a state of Florida and as institutions, we have to recognize this, and no longer is the faculty member the sole deliverer of knowledge. We can share content, we can share ideas with other experts around the world, and so truly the world is open. And we take that thought as we move through distance learning at the University of West Florida. We're at the very tip of the Panhandle. North of us is another state. West of us is another state. South of us is the Gulf of Mexico. And so we have the East. And so for us, about 7 years ago, as I said, we decided that we were going to embrace online and distance learning. Not just because we were at the tip of the panhandle, but also because we have somewhat of a transient population. We have 7 military bases in our region. So we have people that are there for 2, 3, 4 years, and then they move along. So we decided to do that, and one of the first things that we looked at was, how in the world could we do this? How could we support e-learning on our campus? And our president at the time created what's called an IT strategic plan, and the IT strategic plan formed distance learning for our campus. And the Academic Technology Center, which you see at the center, I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a moment, served as the kind of the impetus, the centerpiece for establishing distance learning. Design, develop, implement distance learning across our campus. But to do that, it's not just building the best courses that you can build. It's a lot of different activity that occurs. Certainly it's faculty development. I couldn't agree more that that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the instructor and the students interact and engage, and that's where teaching and learning happens. So most certainly that's critical. But as well, there's all the support services and all the other things that happen. There's testing, there's tutoring, there's disability services, there's advising, enrollment. Information technology certainly plays, obviously, a key role in this. And there's the library. There's all kinds of things that happen on a day-to-day basis when you're on a traditional campus. The student can walk to these different services, but if they're truly distant students, you have to contemplate how to deliver the same services to those students that can't come to campus. So as a result, we formed the Academic Technology Center in 2003, as I said, to design, develop, implement online learning, and we began looking at how we would go about doing that. To date, we have 700 courses developed at a distance, 23 fully online programs, 10 certificate programs, and as mentioned, 30% of all of our enrollments at UWF annually are delivered at a distance. We have been recognized in a few places to date. We were very pleased to be recognized by the Sloan Foundation in 2008 for our online faculty development. We created a faculty development model called Studio E, where faculty are required to participate, and they participate somewhat what Joel was talking about. It's pedagogy training where you walk through how to design and develop distance learning. You certainly talk about copyright and you talk about intellectual property and all of those things, but you're teaching faculty how to design and develop distance learning. These are faculty that know how to teach. They're faculty in many cases that have been teaching for many years, but they're not doing it the same way when you move into an online environment. It truly is 24/7. And so as a faculty member, you have to contemplate how you do that, how you engage, when you engage. And so in the development of our training program, we require faculty to attend a training program that is for an entire semester where they design their online course, and then the next semester they stay with us in an online class as they implement their online course. So it's really a full year training session, and they work collaboratively with our Academic Technology Center. We've been recognized in some other areas. One that we're very, very happy about and very honored to be a part of is as a military-friendly institution. As I said, we serve many bases in our region, but we also reach out to service members all over the United States. And we've been awarded a military-friendly institution for several years. So where we started. We decided that being able to do all of this, we really needed a conceptual framework. We needed a foundation by which to operate. Otherwise, we would be moving in many different directions. So we started by looking at accreditation, obviously, SAC's definitions and principles of distance ed. We looked at the Western Interstate Commission on Higher Ed. We looked at the Southern Regional Electronic Campus and the SREB and the work that was going on there. The Sloan C pillars of effective practice that you heard Joel talk about, the DoD principles of good practice, and then more recently in the past 3 or 4 years, Quality Matters, as it's come on board as a strong model for quality distance learning, distance teaching. So we created this framework with teaching and learning in its center, and we determined right away that institutional alignment of distance learning to our institutional goals and to the policies of things that are happening at our institution that we needed to be aligned to that. And so if our goals are about growth, or if our goals are about access or quality or whatever our institutional goals are, we wanted to be a part of that as we continue to contemplate distance learning and the things that we're doing. Quality curriculum is another area. What we certainly looked at all of these different areas as we thought about quality curriculum and faculty qualifications, student engagement, how you go about teaching and learning. Not different from how you would go about teaching and learning in a face-to-face environment. You would have the same kinds of faculty members teaching courses, etc. We also looked at faculty support, and our Academic Technology Center really serves as a hub for faculty support, our training, our professional development, the consulting services that are provided, as well as any walk-in, assistance that a faculty member may need. So we made that one of our primary focus areas. Student support, as I showed at the very beginning, all of the different ways that students interact and engage with the campus, we needed to make sure that those services were available to the students and that we continue to listen to them on an annual basis to continue to evolve and continue to do a better job. And then we chose continuous improvement as just part of the cycle, that we collect data in each of these areas, we consciously work in these areas, and we continue to try to do a better job teaching and learning at the University of West Florida. Our delivery model for distance learning, we do fully online using what's called Desire to Learn. Now we are fully online. You heard earlier the definition is 80% of your course delivered at a distance. We chose early on, for us, fully online is 100%, because many of our students aren't on our campus taking distance learning courses. We have many students, and you'll see in a moment, we have 2,300 students that don't come to our campus at all to take courses. They take just distance courses. So if we said 80% of the course was online, then we wouldn't have those 2,200 students taking just distance courses. They're in 48 states around the country, and we wanted to ensure, as we began to develop programs, that these courses were fully available online for our students. We also do blended courses. We do two-way interactive video. We do synchronous web conferencing, and we've done a little bit with mobile distance learning as well. So part of what we did, and creating our conceptual framework and how we monitor this along the way, we created goals, we created our practices, our metrics, and how we were going to get there in each of those 5 different areas. We look at cost, we look at growth and access, and we look at partnerships as it relates to institutional alignment. And I know you can't read the details of all of those, but I just wanted to share with you generally what we're doing. As it relates to cost, I also was asked to talk about e-learning and how it compares with traditional classroom instruction. It's one of the things that we monitor. Now, we certainly look at all of the costs associated with delivering distance learning programs and distance learning courses. As you know, about a year ago, 2 years ago, the distance learning fee was implemented, so we monitor that very closely. We monitor the amount of dollars that are collected in the distance learning fees and how we expend them and so forth. So we monitor all of that. But we also look at our instructional costs. And for us, speaking as a dean of a college, it is a little bit different. It's if you have a faculty member, and my college is College of Professional Studies, we have 55% of all of our courses are delivered at a distance. So my college has a large number of distance teaching and learning going on. Our faculty certainly are the faculty that we traditionally would use, so that cost remains constant. But there are other things that we ask faculty to do. We ask them to build courses online. That takes a lot of time to do. Once they have the course developed, then they're monitoring it. They're continuing to make it better. Each summer, the faculty in my college participate in Quality Matters, and we do course modifications. So they are always looking at making their courses better. Obviously, software utilization, advising, and revising courses, as I mentioned, are things that increase the instructional cost a bit. Let me talk about advising for a moment. all institutions have advising centers, so students certainly can go to those advising centers to participate in whatever exchange that they need. But when you're online, even advising is different. And you have to contemplate, is advising an 8-to-5 job now? Is it something that's a little bit different? How do we support that student at night for their needs of, what courses do I take next semester? What does my degree plan look like? And that exchange of what my career is going to be like as I move through my degree program. For us as well, enrollment per course section remains constant, whether it's face-to-face or online. For us, engagement is a critical component of the success of distance learning. Students engaging with other students, students engaging with faculty, and students engaging with the content are critical to us. So we chose early on not to front load a lot of students into distance learning courses, but to keep it very similar to how faculty would engage with their students face-to-face. And we as well find that at undergraduate, our course numbers are pretty much identical face-to-face or online. At graduate, we may have a few more online than face-to-face. Now, I'll tell you what does happen. If you open a section of a course that's face-to-face and you open a section of a course that's online, guess what happens? The online section fills immediately, the face-to-face class does not. So in that, and eventually it fills, but you see students are selecting this, and of course you've seen that in the data throughout the day. Infrastructure and specialized personnel, the same issues that Joel talked about. Certainly there's costs associated with that we did not necessarily have on our campus before. We have a great IT infrastructure on our campus, but we've had to purchase additional software, we've had to purchase additional hardware. Our learning management system cost goes up every year. We use Alumni, we use Respondus, we use all kinds of tools to help engage and support our students online and then to assist with academic integrity and assessment. So those costs exist. Student services costs are a little bit different. And when we made the conscious decision to go online, our help desk in ITS call volume went up significantly, and it continues to go up because they serve our distance learning students throughout the day and throughout the evening. In terms of more efficient use of facilities, you've heard a couple of great examples of how that can occur. When you have classes that are on the ground, you can blend those courses and use that same classroom multiple times throughout that individual time block, and that works extremely well as you're trying to grow on your campus. For us, one of the other area that we monitor, of course, is our access to education, and this is our numbers for fall 2011. In fall, we're offered 448 course sections, duplicated head count 9,804 of a population of students that, about 11,800. So 5,506 students took an online course at our institution in fall semester. 81% of our students are from Florida. 40% are outside of our service area. So we, as I said, we serve students throughout the state. We certainly serve students in our region, and we most certainly have students that are on campus and take one class face-to-face, one class online, and mix it up a little bit for a variety of different reasons, but we do have students that are outside. This is just a chart of our growth and how it's continued to evolve since the time that we started collecting online data in fall 2006. And it continues to grow just as the state average continues to grow, just as the national trends are there. Our online-only students, if you look at this, in fall 2010, 2,333 students were taking only online courses. Of those students, 45% of them were juniors and seniors. So they were upper division students, and that continues to be our largest segment. What is occurring now at our institution, obviously graduate students are taking more online courses as well. I mentioned access as well through mobile education. We have had 6 or 7 years worth of work with the Department of Defense, and the question that they came to us with many years ago was, how can we do this? How can we deliver voluntary education to our service members while they're deployed? You might remember 6 or 7 years ago, internet access in Iraq and Afghanistan and all the places where people were deployed wasn't so great. So they were doing correspondence courses, they were downloading things onto ships, on their internet shipboard and so forth, and they asked us if we could do something a little different and try to deliver mobile learning. Now 7 years ago that meant PDAs and very little, no 3G networks and no apps. But we've been doing that for several years, and we continue to do a bit of it as a way to provide access to people who don't have that constant internet availability. And that's getting a little bit better throughout the military. The other thing that we look at, of course, is quality curriculum, and we do measurements in each of the different areas on our campus. We look at equivalency of educational experience. We look at academic integrity as well as course completions. And I think there was a question earlier about a face-to-face class versus an online class, which one is going to be a better experience. What we found through time is that either no significant differences exist, meaning that the learning outcomes are equivalent, or the learning outcomes may even be better. There's been a lot of work published on this through the years, and that's pretty consistent. We've tried to do media comparison studies for 25 or 30 years with whatever technology comes out. We keep trying to figure out if that's better than the last one. But the reality is, and someone mentioned it, it's about teaching and learning. It's about great teaching, and it's about students engaging and learning. And the technology itself is just a tool to get there. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's just the tool. But we do look at that. Our course completion rates at the University of West Florida, we've tried to monitor online and traditional. We are not monitoring blended learning yet, but we will begin doing that soon. Our online students, on an average, institutional average, are completing at a 91.4% rate. That's course completions. Now, what we do also, in addition to looking at the whole institution, is we look at individual programs, and there are some programs that have 100% completion. There are some programs that have 85%, 86, 87, just based on the program, and the course completions are parallel, whether they're face-to-face or online. In terms of faculty support, we monitor our metrics as well there. We certainly look at training and support and assistance. And we monitor the number of faculty that go through training. Through our Studio E training, we have about 330 faculty, 200 plus have gone through Studio E training. We do Quality Matters. About 250 of those faculty have gone through. Our Faculty Senate has recently passed something indicating that all of our faculty that teach online have to go through formal training to be able to teach online. We're not as many years down the pike as UCF, and they've been doing that for quite some time. But what we found is that our faculty want to go through training, and the Faculty Senate wants our faculty to go through training. And so we've hit a great spot there where people agree that training is one of the most significant variables to quality in online courses. So we have different faculty development programs, and I've talked about that a bit. We have faculty consulting. We also have faculty scholars, and these are faculty who have had a significant amount of training. They've gone through Quality Matters. They've become Quality Matters peer reviewers, and they have exemplified excellence in their courses. And then we have peer review teams that look at individual courses. Our faculty scholars represent different facets of education. We have people from career and technical education, special education, information technology, and the lady on the bottom right, Dr. Enid Siskin, is teaching in public health. So our Masters of Public Health is a phenomenal graduate program that is delivered at a distance, and she does amazing work. We have many other folks, but these four represent this year's faculty scholars that work with other faculty through our Academic Technology Center. In terms of student support, I've mentioned that a few times. We monitor this annually, and we do surveys that relate to student engagement, that whole issue of interaction, student support services, what services are we providing, what can we do a better job of in the next year. And then what we do in terms of providing guidance for students. When we first started doing distance learning 7+ years ago, we thought, ooh, faculty, you know, they're not going to be ready to do this. And my goodness, students, they absolutely aren't going to know what to do when they go into the learning management system. Well, in about a second and a half, they get online, they've got it, they know what to do, but we do still provide some tutorials if people need to understand better how to put things in a Dropbox or how to participate in a threaded discussion and those kinds of things for our students. Our annual student support and interaction survey, I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. And we also are doing a college level survey at this point in my college with our students and getting some very interesting results back at the college level. All the years before, I've been at the institutional level in terms of supporting and implementing distance learning. In my newer role as a dean, I really am where the rubber meets the road because you know, in the departments, working with the department chairs and trying to hear exactly what the students are saying within the programs that are ours, we are continuing to make adjustments even within the college to try to support our students even better than we have been doing in the past. We're providing quality courses to our students, and we monitor that. We know that's happening. We monitor our course completions. We're providing something called Proctor U, Respondus, and Turnitin, all three of those areas to support academic integrity. This was something that not only did our faculty want to make sure that our students are the students taking the tests at the other end, our students wanted to make sure that was occurring as well. So we have committed to all three of the different strategies as well as alternative forms of assessment and so forth so that our students are the students taking the tests at the other end. People have mentioned quality as the question that they get most frequently. Quality is certainly a question that I've gotten, is distance learning as good as face-to-face? But we do also get the question, and there's been a lot of debate in the national literature about academic integrity. So we're trying very hard to respond to that at our institution. And then also providing quality advising, and I've talked a bit about that. And we do telephone advising, we do chat advising and all of that, but we also do illuminate sessions so that our students can see and talk to our advisors, pull up their SAS audit or whatever it is, and have a real conversation during advising, because that's a very important part of the student experience as well. In terms of student engagement, what we're seeing is that our students strongly agree that our levels of interaction with instructors are great, that constructive feedback is provided. What we talk to our faculty about through our training and through our conversations is that engagement is key. Don't let the students misconceive what's going on. Don't let them think that it's one way and it's another. And please don't miss an email. You know, make sure you respond to these students every day. Talk to them, guide them, scaffold them, get them where they need to be. And so we ask our faculty those questions, but we also ask our students. And that's very important. So instructors are providing constructive feedback. The level of interaction between our students contributes to the understanding of course objectives, the opportunity to work with other students, and developing that community of learning. So this is our online interaction component, and we're very satisfied with that. We're continuing to use those numbers to continue to engage and continue to make a difference. And I'll go right back to faculty development as being the most important thing that you can do. Because what happens in online courses, as you know, a well-designed course is fabulous. But without an instructor that is present in that course, that well-designed course doesn't do any good. So, yes.
I wanted to kind of let you know, we probably need to wrap up here because we need to leave a little bit of time for some dialogue. Sorry.
Okay.
I know so much good information, but we're just kind of running a little behind.
Student support services, you'll see here, we've got admissions, registration, advising, and so forth, and we monitor that on a yearly basis. In terms of continuous improvement, we collect a good bit of data each year, and we look at gender, age, location from campus, reasons for taking online courses, the number of students that are truly online, and try to monitor that annually. What I'm going to do within about a minute is take you through only some highlights of our institution and how we started. We began distance learning in 2003 by approval of our Board of Trustees and an IT strategic plan. In 2004, what you will begin seeing is incentives for faculty to contemplate using distance learning for teaching and learning because they weren't doing that before. You'll also see us joining organizations and becoming a part of the state in terms of distance learning, the Florida Distance Learning Consortium and so forth. In 2005, somewhat significant, the director of the Academic Technology Center joins the Dean's Council, and this has always been part of academic affairs, but it became an important voice to sit with the deans and look at the issues and the initiatives that occur in academic affairs. In 2006 and 2007, I think the significance here is a series of retreats that occurred with the Faculty Senate and getting them engaged and having conversations with them about their issues, because there are issues, and begin to make some plans and strategies to solve those issues. The other initiative I think I mentioned very briefly is the Faculty Senate in 2009, continuing to be fully engaged in what we're doing, requiring faculty to attend professional development, and then requiring distance learning programs to go through a pretty significant course CCR process. And I am going to end with overall best practices. What we would say to others that are thinking about implementing distance learning or learning more about how to implement this on a campus, there's a lot that has to be considered. We developed a systematic framework so that we looked at all the components of the system to figure out how they work together, that we weren't just building good courses, we weren't just getting the best learning management system, we were looking at the whole system, considering accreditation requirements, and certainly that's SACS, but it's also AACSB, NK, ABET, all of the other major accrediting bodies, using change management strategies to engage the campus community, having a lot of conversation in a lot of places about it, creating a strategic focus because we could not go everywhere at the same time, implementing detailed views within individual programs, colleges and academic departments, and really helping the colleges plan how they're going to do those programs at a distance because they had not done that before. Engage students, and then create strategic partnerships. So I'll end there.
Thank you very much. Governor Edwards.
Well, real quick, I believe you indicated that a little over 2,300 of the University of West Florida students took only online courses. Approximately what percentage of those would be considered full-time students?
Most of them were part-time students. We find that these are more of your non-traditional students, more are females than males, pretty consistent with what the literature says.
Okay. I guess one question for you, given the number of people maybe that are not in state that you serve and what we heard about the federal policies, tell me, how are we dealing with that now? Are we just continuing to do it and hope it works out, or how, okay, where does that stand?
It's a great question. This group right here, we've been having a lot of conversation about this, and the Florida Distance Learning Consortium and the SREB and the Board of Governors. I am bugging John Opper, about three times a day, I think, with emails in terms of how we can collaborate on this so that each institution is not on their own to go out and get their own partnerships and deal with all of these individual integrity issues on our own. But to try to have the voice of the state, certainly would be great to have the voice of the region to try to make some consistent decisions. So, Richard?
Just to let you know, on the program integrity issue, we actually are pulling together a meeting next Monday to begin to kind of map out a strategy for dealing with this at the state level and to help the institutions who are engaged in distance learning to at least meet the initial requirements, and then working with the SREB and others to try to go after it from either a regional or even a national perspective from the reciprocity end.
Okay, we have had a lot of information presented to us today. I appreciate everyone kind of bearing with us. I hope you found it helpful. By all means, I do not mean to imply that there's not amazing things happening at all the other campuses sitting out there. It was really just a matter of time today. So the thought was to show you kind of one of the larger institutions and what they were doing, show you one of the smaller institutions, and then really to seek your feedback on what next, both at the trustee levels and, Mark, I'm sorry, you're going to probably get picked on because I think you're one of my last standing here of the trustees, but, understand a little bit about how are the trustees engaging on this, how involved are you guys with your institutions on these issues, where do we need to be doing something, what else do we want to know as a board, kind of just to get a sense of the board on what next steps you'd like to see in this area, if any. Yes?
We had a concern that some of the universities were overlapping other universities' courses of study. And they were, I don't want to say taking advantage of populations, but some from North Florida were down in South Florida. South Florida was in Central Florida and so forth. Now I'm listening to great programs in various parts of the state. And not only are you going out of the state, but you're going within our state. And I'd like to know if there's going to be some way of checking on all of this, because if there is a university that's offering the same course in a certain area, is it the right thing for your university to be pulling in students from another university? Especially in the same
I think that was going to go that's
area.
above my pay grade. That's a chair question.
I'm sorry, I thought you were asking. You look at
No,
it. I think it's something to think about.
Right. I mean, I don't think that there's I know we don't have an answer now.
I know.
And the question becomes whether or not we think we should have an answer.
Right.
But I think we should at least have some conversation about whether or not there is a place for a place of where we should be concerned about whether online learning is a way of getting, is also a way of having campuses in other locations. And I may not actually be framing the issue correctly, but the question is, is it something that, as a governing body, we should have some concern about? And
Governor?
To follow up on Pat's question, should we become more involved, not necessarily in policing course offerings, but in helping to coordinate between all of our universities these programs? I know that Florida A&M, I believe, is just fixing to embark in a major online program. Is there anything that Central Florida or West Florida could do to help them get started, and can we help push that forward? I think we really need to be, as you can see from the numbers, tremendous increase in the number of students taking these courses, and obviously for good reason. My concern would be, what, if anything, should the Board of Governors be doing to help coordinate all of these universities? And I'm not so much concerned about duplication, even though that could be a problem, but, money is a problem today. If you don't believe it, wait till tomorrow. But, should we be doing anything to help these our universities coordinate with each other? That's, I think, is a fundamental question that strikes me as being, the answer should be yes, but I don't know what the universities think.
Well, and I think just if I could interact on that one of the the distance learning people from each institution, just like our provosts and like our student affairs people, they do talk, they do coordinate, and I think they are sharing a lot of information. Ironically, what started me down this whole path was that idea of the platforms and was there a better way to leverage it on the efficiency side of it, and then I got into this and realized there were so many other bigger questions that was kind of the tail wagging the dog to some degree related to where we were going. But I think there are a lot of opportunities. I do think, I guess one question is a general sense on the quality control, accountability. Is that something maybe we want to look at what questions we're asking, how we're tracking this in our annual report and the strategic plans and things that we're doing. My sense is that probably warrants some further discussion and dialogue to get to the right place. Again, do we have any guidelines as someone's going into it? We've heard these two talk about the faculty training and what an important component is. I really don't know if the others do that, or if they think that's a good idea. Is that something we want to make sure happens? I think there's a lot of those kinds of things that we obviously aren't going to solve today, but I guess, again, just trying to get a sense of, from the trustee level, how engaged you guys are on these issues, and are you tracking the growth of these programs, or the quality control mechanisms, or again, everybody's kind of learning as we go on this, and various institutions are at various places on it. And, yes.
I've got a question and an observation. My question is, I'm not 100% sure I understand how a student at Central Florida takes a course at Florida, how that works, or if it works. So I'd like an explanation of that, and I'm assuming you can, but I'm not sure you can. An online course, if you can cross over the bridge from one university to the other. That's my that's my question. But the other thing is that obviously, if we're going through this strategic planning session, looking to what happens in the next 20 years, we need the facts about distance learning and how it affects our buildings, our facilities, our teachers, and all that kind of stuff that needs to be looked at very carefully. So we need the input from the institutions about all that stuff. So, comment on the question.
John, Richard, someone want to respond to that one?
Well, in terms of a student, students currently, whether they're distance learning or not, can take a course at another institution other than their degree granting institution as a transient student. We have processes in place to do that. To do that, they have to be advised through their department. They have to be assured that the course will count towards a degree. There are a number of checks and balances in that process. Specifically to distance learning, the legislature has been interested for the last 2 years, and we've been working with them closely on trying to automate that process so that a student could search the catalog that you saw earlier that I presented and click a button and start that transient process if they want to take a course from another institution other than their home institution.
And the money for the course goes back to the institution that's teaching it, obviously.
Something to say.
Any?
Governor Duncan.
Yes, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes.
Awesome. The concern I have is, like Governor Colston talked about, in reference to ranking. I know now it only impacts it financially, but I guess as this world continues to evolve 20, 30 years from now, globally, I do have a concern that it could end up holistically impacting rankings as well. So as we build the business models, I think we should also keep that in mind 10, 20, 30, even 40 years from now. And I'm an old man. Just comment when we develop the policies for it.
Any other feedback from anybody from any of the other institutions that have a burning issue you want to put on the table with us? You're welcome to chime in. I guess so. In general, am I hearing you would like to see the committee maybe take a stab at how we incorporate this with our annual, at least our reporting, start looking at what we're tracking? Is that a reasonable next step, and kind of get feedback from institutions on what the right things to be tracking are? Or am I thinking they got it handled and we just need to move on to 10 other things we have on our agenda? We need to think about it some more because we throw a lot of information at you at one time.
Maybe we can be used as a coordinating effort as opposed to a tracking effort. I mean, obviously the facts are out there somewhere, but I don't.
Well, obviously I think this federal regulation is going to give us an issue and a vehicle that we're going to need to be engaged on. So, maybe we kind of focus on how to work with the institutions cooperatively to help work through that issue. Governor Tripp?
I thought Dick Beard had a good idea. I think in our strategic planning, I think it'll be a good time for us to discuss what kind of involvement the board should have. And, one of the advantages of distance learning is it's going to change the dynamics on how universities will compete with each other on courses. I'm not sure it's in our best interest to disallow a student to take a course from a great professor in the state just because he's not necessarily enrolled there. There may be issues on both sides, but I would hope that before we really decide what we want to do, we've seen a little, we really ought to make distance learning one of the major focuses of our strategic plan, because we see this enormous growth in the student population. So it's going to affect everybody. And we need to hopefully get it right. And I think we're going to need a lot of input from the various universities as how they would like to deal with it and how they see themselves going. One thing I don't want us to do is to take the role of the trustee. You know, much of this is operations within the university, and we've devolved that down to the trustees to be dealing with that. So I think we need to stay at a higher platform and be careful not to be doing things that really the trustees should be doing.
And again, I think that was the genesis behind making sure trustees were part of this and part of this dialogue and trying to share, not reinventing the wheel and getting information out there for everybody to work from. But, you know, I get one of the questions is, you know, are the trustees really, are they looking at this? Because a lot of times these are programs that are already approved. They're not approving, they're not really, I don't think, part of the dialogue about whether it's an online program or not. And so this whole world is kind of happening, and I think that's one of the questions I have is, you know, is that I hope that the trustees, given the direction this is going, will engage a little more and talk about it, because I tend to think that is where it belongs, you know, in that dialogue there. But again, it's all moving, it's all happening so quickly, it's happening so differently at every institution. It's a challenge. Yes.
So I guess the question that we need to address at this point is, do we stop there? And I understand what you're saying, Governor Tripp, and that, yes, we think that it's something that should be addressed as a part of our strategic plan conversation, but what does that really mean? You know, does that mean that we ask a university to give us some idea of how they plan to incorporate e-learning and the growth and planning for their institution, and we take a look at that? Does that mean, I guess I need to have, I think staff and our committee chair needs a little more direction of what our sense is. And I'm not suggesting an answer as much as I don't want us to have spent several hours here today and leave here without having some direction of kind of, you know, what our next steps are. Because, you know, I think we just need to make sure we're making the best use of our time and are kind of playing the role of ensuring that we're at least making the best use of our resources more than anything else. And if there are some basic things that we think need to be in place, I mean, and what I would consider basic is that if we think that everybody needs to make sure that they have, you know, courses where we teach the online course providers, and those are some guiding principles. I mean, we can also make those types of suggestions without encouraging many more requests for owners' reports or encouraging more meetings. So I guess that Ann needs a sense from you all as to what you'd like for her to do next. And it could be nothing, but just kind of a sense of what that is so that we can move forward. And Chancellor Brogan.
Madam Chair, just a couple of things. There may be more, but I'm with you all where I think you're headed with this. I think it is fairly clear from these presentations, and by the way, if the chairwoman didn't say it, you could have had a presentation like that from every university in the state system, and they were all eager to do that. It was a matter of timing. But I think the surprise to most people is how much e-learning we already do in the state of Florida system, and I think that was borne out by the good presentation by Bruce and SREB. Lots more to do, no question. Lots different to do. But I think there's perhaps two things we can do at a very least. Not that, you know, we always have to feel compelled to do something, even if it's something that's already taking on its own life. But from that standpoint, at least number one, is the annual work plan developed by the universities now for presentation on an annual basis to not only their own board as part of their strategic planning process, but to the Board of Governors. is to make a place for it, to find out, just to stay abreast of what each university is doing in the world of distance learning and e-learning. I think, this board has a number of responsibilities. In my opinion, one of them is to clearly stay abreast on the major issues impacting the system, but also each of the institutions as it relates to the system. So we could embed that for presentation's sake as part of the annual work plan presentation. And then the second part, because I agree, I don't think we want to over-report anything, but at least as part of our accountability system that we, I will say, are developing, because it is still a work in progress as much as we've done on it, is some accounting for education's sake as to what we all do on the issue of e-learning at each of the institutions. And it doesn't have to be terribly in-depth, but at least some 30,000 feet, almost a dashboard indicators for distance learning. How many undergraduate, graduate, the kinds of things you saw in these good presentations today that are simple to synthesize, that are kept anyway, and fairly easy to report. Both of those kind of come under the heading of for information, but I will tell you that at the very least, those are two things I think this board could help to promote, because it is also very important that others know how much we are doing in distance learning. The legislature comes to mind. It is important that they know that we are not behind the curve, but in many ways we are ahead of the curve on this issue. But they need to know that through appropriate mechanisms that will raise their comfort level. So at least those two things I think would be helpful without being onerous.
One other thing that I'd like to throw out, then I'll get to Governor Edwards. Right now, SACS has some guidelines that they expect to have happen in the process when they're looking at for accreditation. One thing I might suggest is that we kind of punt to the distance learning experts to kind of maybe look at, is that something we should adopt as a guideline that, at least kind of our expectation is someone starting a program that they're going to meet those. Let's not find out on the back end we didn't meet accreditation standards. Let's kind of maybe proactively, be out there. But again, they're complex. I don't want to overreach on that, but I'd like maybe we can ask them to come back to us with if they think there are some proactive steps that we should be taking that are appropriate at this level of policy, and hear what they would suggest to us on that. Governor Edwards.
That was my exact suggestion. Was going to be my exact suggestion.
Sorry.
If there's one thing I've learned over my years of working on these boards is frequently we don't ask the universities what we can do to help them. This is an area where it seems to be working well with what they're doing. But I would suggest, then, as part of your committee work, that you actually go to whoever the president, whoever it might be, at each of our universities and say, you've heard our discussion today. What can we do to help you make this a better program, not only for your university, but system-wide? Dr. Ammons might say, hey, I'd love to get somebody from Central Florida to come to my campus for a semester. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. But there are opportunities here. But I think it's important. Part of what we wind up doing is to find out what our universities think our role should be for, if any.
Okay. Yes, Chair.
As a follow-up to Governor Edwards' comment, it would seem that if you have that conversation, Governor Duncan, is that if you would work, I guess, first with those e-learning director folks who really kind of are directing those programs, and get some thoughts from them about how to proceed, because I am interested. I think I saw something wherein as a way to deal with some of the budget cuts in K through 12, well, I guess at high school level, they're going to start requiring some courses online for high school students. And I say that to say that if they're going to start that at that level, I do think it may increase the number of online courses that we'll start receiving on a university level. And so as we are planning, in particular with strategic planning issues, those are the kinds of things I think that to keep in mind. But I do think as a good next step, if you would spend some more time, and I'm sorry, I know you have a lot going on, but if you spend some more time with the directors of these programs at the 11 institutions, And my suggestion would be if we have some type of just guiding principles so that we can feel that we are addressing the accountability issues as well as the limited resources issues. So that if we're asked, if we're doing our job as it relates to this issue, we can appoint to some mechanism that we have in place, be it strict or even loose, but we have something in place that suggests we reviewed it and we're paying attention.
I think that would be very appropriate. Governor Stavros?
Well, Governor Charlie's absolutely right. What can we do to help the universities? I still get this magazine of trusteeship when I was on the board at USF. And in this last issue, talked about two things. One, President Eric said, what can we do to help him in reducing dropouts? And here's an article, Freedom to Fail. What is the board's role? That's the board of each university. What's the role in reducing college dropouts? Because the amount of money is tremendous that's lost by that happening. And then in the very next article, in the same magazine, it says, online education, where's it going? What should boards know? Nearly a third of all full-time and part-time students in nonprofit and profit colleges and for-profit colleges in the University of America took one or more online courses last year. We've just heard all about that today. What are the boards doing at each university, and what can we do to help them? I think Governor Charlie's absolutely right. There must be some way that we can help.
Madam Chair, I'll give you one good example of what came up today, and it's something we've been talking about in our office with folks, is this new federal requirement that if the University of Central Florida is going to provide an online course to Idaho or to any of the other 50 states, 49 states, that you have to enter into an agreement with that state specifically to create this across-state line trade capability. I'm not sure people yet understand, one, how complex that issue is going to be, because every state, as we all love to be, will be different in terms of what they will allow, what they will expect. And there is also, I think, before we're said and done with this, going to be a significant cost factor associated. We heard one figure today from Bruce that, it may be $25,000 or more to set up such an agreement in one of these states. So clearly one of the areas where all of our universities who are going to want to cross state lines with this sort of technology, rather than each one going it alone and hoping they do a great job, this is one area where a system approach, I think, to that issue would be very beneficial, up to and including perhaps a cost issue and a legislative budget request item, if we can coordinate it that way, to create a system reciprocal agreement with each of the other 49 states on this issue. So it is a good example. The only way to know that is to interface, and I think there may be many more things, governors, that we may be able to do, and we need to ask and find out if
and we may need to add something to our federal policy platform. I mean, it may be an angle there. Well,
and yes. One other thing, I just think that at the appropriate time, we certainly need to ask the universities how they see their projected growth in this area.
Absolutely.
For the next 10 years or 20 years or whatever the number is, so we can put it into our plan.
Well, I appreciate your time and your participation today. I hope you found it helpful. I think I've got a good sense with staff here that will bring back some things through the committee here for your consideration going forward. But again, I know we threw a lot at you, so if you have another idea or thought, please contact our staff, give them the ideas, and we'll get on it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Governor Duncan. And I realize that you put a lot of time and energy and several hours into pulling all that information together, and I just want to say thank you for your time and commitment to the issue. It is certainly something that is a big deal as we move forward, and particularly with our strategic plan. I want to talk to you on a little bit about a few housekeeping matters. I guess first I would like to ask my presidents who have trustees who are here today, because I know they may not be here tomorrow, if you wouldn't mind recognizing the trustees that you have now so we can extend a special thanks to them for coming out. Dr. Emmons, you can start, and if you have any trustees.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have with us today our chair of our board, Mr. C. William Jennings, also the chair of our Academic Affairs Committee, Dr. Solomon Badger, is with us as well.
Thank you very much. Dr. Benz, do you have any of your trustees? Dr. Saunders?
I've been joined by Bob Stilley, the chair of the Board of Trustees for Florida Atlantic. He had to step out for a minute, but he'll be rejoining us at the cocktail party.
Thanks. And Dr. Barron?
I'm Mark Ellis, one of our Board of Trustees members.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other presidents and trustees? Dr. Gensha?
Yes. Brian Lamb, who's a Board of Trustee member.
Wonderful. We want to, did I miss anyone? Wanted to thank, I'm sorry.
There are two student trustees here as
Most
well.
definitely.
The student body president from the University of Central Florida and a member of the UCF Board of Trustees, Mr. Michael Kilbride, and also the FIU student body president, member of Florida International University Board of Trustees, Ms. Helena Ramirez. Thank you.
I want to thank all of the members of our local boards of trustees for being with us this afternoon. I think that through your participation here today, you have a better idea of the kinds of concerns that we're addressing, and I hope that you can take those into account as you address these issues with your local boards. And certainly we want to invite you to participate in any of the conference calls or in-person meetings that we have, because your participation makes, kind of ensures that we do a better job of what we see as our responsibility is as a part of the state university system. The second item that I want to talk to you about is that we want to thank Dr. Barron. He's so graciously been our host today, and he has invited all of us to attend a reception that's right outside. We have wonderful Florida weather. Thank God we're not in New York City today, where it was snowing this morning. And I want to thank you very much and extend an invitation to him. I don't know if there's any special direction you want to give us, Dr. Barron.
No, except that we've unlocked the doors here on the side so that you can go straight out to the beverages.
Very good. So, we appreciate the fact we can get to the bar a lot faster if we just go through that door.
Work hard.
And the third thing I want to mention to you all is tomorrow. I know that you probably have seen several different notices regarding the time that our meeting is going to start tomorrow. Well, I'd like for you to know that it was not a mistake, that we are starting at 7 a.m. in the morning. In the morning the governor will be joining us for breakfast, and the time that he had available was 7 o'clock. From what I've heard, he's definitely a morning person, and on tomorrow all of us will be morning people as well. And we will be meeting him here at 7 a.m. In addition to that, I think that our next actual meeting that we have planned is a meeting with the Senate President at 8 o'clock in the morning following our meeting with the governor. So I know that you all are more accustomed to starting at 8:30 and 9, but on tomorrow we'll be starting as early as 7 a.m. And I want to certainly invite all of our presidents and the representatives from our board to join us for these meetings. We think that it's certainly a wonderful opportunity for us to dialogue with our leadership. In addition to that, at some point during our meeting on tomorrow, we'll also have the opportunity to hear from our president of the Speaker of the House, excuse me. So tomorrow we will see Governor Scott at 7, Senator Herodopoulos at 8, and somewhere around 11 or 11:30 we should see Speaker Cannon. So we should be able to leave our things.
Yeah, we're going to clean out the table a little bit. You're having breakfast with the governor. Oh, okay. So would you rather us take our stuff? Yeah. You can leave it.
I'd rather you take your things with you. Yeah, so that way we can make sure that we have things as nice as possible. And I'm unsure of the amount of time we may have in the morning since we're starting so early. So with that, do you guys have any questions or concerns? With that, I want to thank you all so much. We've gotten off to a great start for our meeting, and I look forward to speaking with you more out at the reception. Meeting is adjourned.